Hey, everybody, and welcome to Bold Badass Business Owners, where we bring you the boldest and the baddest every Friday at 4:30 Eastern. And today we have boldness and badassery in the house with Michael Whitehouse, the fun virtual event guy. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you. I look forward to bringing the boldness and the badassery.
I know you're bringing it. You already brought it here. So we got that boldness and that badassery. Now, you all, I'm going to tell you, I never read an intro. Why? Because it's boring as hell. So I'm going to tell you, for one thing, tip number one, just for me, before we get to Michael, is to not have your events suck. Don't read the daggone intro. That's boring as heck. Let me tell you that Michael Whitehouse, since 1996, has been an event creator, an event runner. And when in 2020 we had COVID strike, well, actually, yeah, in 2020, Michael said, you know what? This is where we're going. And he became a virtual event aficionado, and he now has tons of virtual events that he has headed up for people. So when you want a done for you virtual event, he's your guy, right, Michael? It's him, the MH. And you got to call him for that. So just so you know, he has tons of experience. And having spoken for one of Michael's summits, I can tell you that I made incredibly valuable contacts, not just with the people who were present, but also with the other speakers. And this is something that I think you are excellent at, Michael. And it's why in the description I said, you all watching are not just going to get stuff that's going to make your virtual summits better. You're going to learn stuff that you can apply to your Zoom calls so you're not boring as hell, and that you can also apply to your webinars. All right. So welcome, Michael, again. We're happy you're here.
Thank you.
So what's the biggest mistake? The biggest mistake that you see business owners make in their virtual events and online events?
They think their speakers are interesting. So I call it the DJ fallacy. So I've known a number of DJs, club DJs in my time. And DJs are super into music, and they know the newest songs they come out, and they know the deep cut beat tracks that no one's ever heard of, and the one that has like this one off beat because they got the super cool record, and they're super excited about it. And they don't realize that nobody cares. Because when you go to a club, you're going for an experience, part of which is the music, but also the drinking and the people and the hanging out outside and the getting out of the house and the, feeling the music, the thrumming and whatnot. Now, this generally isn't an issue unless you talk to the DJs. They lament, why won't they dance to the new music? Because they don't care about the music. They're there for the experience. But in 2020, you really saw it when DJs are like, no problem. I can just stream my music over the internet. Why is no one coming? Because they didn't go to the club for the music. And even if they did, their speakers at home aren't club speakers. So carry that over to virtual events. If you ran live virtual events, then you're focused on, we bring the best speakers. And that's why people come, because we bring great speakers, and that's what gives them a great experience. COVID happens. No problem. We take our great speakers, we put them on Zoom, and everyone's going to love it. What they don't realize is the speakers are why you show up, but the experience is from meeting the audience and networking and sitting in the room with the people and hearing the clapping.
Okay, I got to stop you. I got to stop you, Michael. We got our first amazing quote. I think you said, the speakers are why you come, but let's say the experience is why you stay.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yep. And I just put it up here. Your event needs to be an experience. And I think that's something that you do so well. So tell us all these elements of the experience that come in. What is it you're wanting to facilitate to make an event, whether it's a Zoom call, whether it's a summit, whether it's webinar, exciting, interesting, and engaging for people?
Well, so the first, because I'm sure some people hear that and they're like, yeah, that sounds great. I don't have a $20,000 budget. I don't have the technology, blah, 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 blah. So first, I'm tell you what you do not need to make experience. You don't need a fancy dashboard. You don't need gamification. You don't need any technology better than Zoom. You don't need a fancy room with lights and cameras. Like, if you can see my setup, like, I look pretty good, right? I mean, not just I look good, but like lights.
Yeah, you look good.
I'm in an ordinary room with a $30 webcam. There's a light up there and there's a light over there. Neither of them are designed for this purpose, but there's enough light in the room. So, you know, you don't need a special room to do it from. You don't need any fancy technology. What you need is the intention of, I'm going to make my event an experience. Because remember what I said, people go to the event for the other people. So when you realize the other people are what makes the experience, gamification doesn't matter. Lighting doesn't matter. I mean, as long as they can see you. But none of that matters. What matters is connecting them with the people. And I've seen plenty of mediocre events that have thousands, tens of thousands of dollars of super cool stuff. Everything you do, you get points and you get coins, and the coins go contests, and there's been a wheel, and like, okay, la-di-da. Did I meet anybody? Because my question from an event is, what did I get out of it? So when I run when anyone runs an event, for the most part, the content being shared is not some world premiere, never been shared before idea. It is not some idea that this is the first time humans have ever heard this. In fact, most of your speakers probably have a podcast and or YouTube channel and or TikTok and or Instagram where they share the very same ideas they will be sharing on your stage. Which means that if you think that your event is going to be amazing because it shares information, I have very bad news for you.
Unless you discovered a new subatomic particle.
Right.
And maybe then that would be earth-shattering.
If it's a science conference, if you're getting, some big player that people care about to announce their thing on your stage, but why would they do that when they could build their own stage?
Right. Unless if it's a cure for COVID.
Yeah.
A cure for COVID, right?
Yeah, which would be weird to have on one of my summits. I'm not sure why that's the venue they would choose. But what does the event have that YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, podcast don't? The audience. So the biggest mistake that the organizers make, to get back to your question, which I remember from 35 minutes ago, the biggest mistake that the organizers make is setting you up so that you can see just the speaker. We put the speaker in front of you, like you want to watch live TV. Because if you do that, all you've got is poorly produced live TV. But if you leverage the fact that there's a whole bunch of people there, as you were saying, what you got out of it was you got to meet the other speakers. You got to meet the audience. When I speak on most events, I speak on less and less events now because most of them just aren't worth the hoops they make me jump through to speak on them, to talk to 4 people. When I speak on most events, all I get is the audience. And if they put 1,000 people in front of me, that's worth it. But most don't, because nobody's coming, because the content's the same as they can find somewhere else. So I build my events to be interactive. Simplest thing you do, breakout rooms. If you have no idea what you're doing, you don't know how to run an event, you just brought the speakers together, like, Michael, it's my first time, I can't handle all this. In between each speaker, have a breakout room. You go to breakout rooms, you look at participants, there's a number, divide that number by 5, create that many breakout rooms, 5 minutes, send them out.
I love that. The engagement of that is incredible. Because see, this is, I used to be so interested in pedagogy and how we teach, right? When I was in academia. And the thing is, this is not about us just vomiting information into people who we can't even see on the screen, as you point out, because we've got just speaker view. Oh my God. By the way, that's the weirdest thing. I have given talks that were virtual where they just had my big face there and then the audience was in person. And I felt like the freaking Wizard of Oz, Michael. I was like, I look like the Wizard of Oz. This is so scary. But the thing is, making it a gallery view, and even when you're presenting, realizing that everyone there has something to contribute and people will actually walk away with more. They'll retain more of the information if you give them questions or you give them applications to discuss in breakouts.
Yep. Well, and the other thing I'll say for speakers, because I'll admit with my events, I'm not that fancy. I don't get to the point of being like, hey, speakers, give me a question to send to the breakouts. That's a lot of organization. I just send people breakouts and they talk about whatever because they're going to anyway. But if you want to get really organized and you're really focused on what they're going to learn, then absolutely you can structure it with a breakout that's attached to the talk and whatnot. But as a speaker, there is one thing that you want the audience to learn at the end of your talk, and that is that you're awesome, and they want more of you.
Right.
So one of the best ways to do that is to teach them something that they take away and say, wow, that was great. But if you teach one thing by telling a really compelling story, and through the course of the story, they learn a cool idea, then they're going to say, yeah, I want your free gift and your paid gift and to search your YouTube channel and to follow your podcast. Versus if you try to show everything you know, I'm going to teach you these 27 points in the next 15 minutes.
And I have them all on my PowerPoints.
Yeah. I have 4 slides, one of which is the intro, one of which is my face and bio that you don't care about, and one of which is my entire agenda, which will be up for the remainder of the presentation. Yeah.
And then all they have to do is say, can I have your slides? And nothing ever happens beyond there.
Yes. Yeah. Now, one thing I have seen done with slides, so I've had long thought, you don't want to be reading your slides because then you're reading your slides. And then I watched Alex Hormozy's launch. And one of the things he talks about, actually, at the beginning of his audiobook, in all of his books, is that when he reads a book, he listens to the audiobook while reading the physical book, because then it comes in multiple ways, you learn it, and it sticks better. And I thought this was interesting. And then I watched his launch, and on the launch, his entire script, with a couple exceptions, basically his entire script is on the slides.
Interesting.
But it's 1 sentence per slide. So what it ends up being is illuminated captions. It's not a paragraph on a slide. It's not a series of bullet points. It's 1 sentence or 1 point. I
was going to say, sounds like captions, and people take in information better that way, right? Because it's bit by bit, it's spoonful by spoonful. But I think slides can be fabulous too if you have them contribute some kind of visual narrative to whatever verbal narrative you're giving. So if you're telling a story and then you have a funny slide that illustrates it, yay. Because that's going to stick in people's minds. But just these slides that I see that are dreadful, that look like they were done by a high schooler, it's very sad. And this is still what people think what a lot of people think makes a great presentation. But I agree. I believe that it is connection that makes for a great presentation, because as you point out, there's nothing new under the sun, really, in terms of ideas, but the way we may present it and the connection that somebody feels to us, and whether or not we evoke an emotional response that they will remember.
Yeah, so that's something I do is actually I give my speakers 5 extra minutes if they make it interactive. So if it's just going to be non-interactive, which is fine, you have a thing you want to teach and you're going to teach it, that's totally cool. But they get 15 minutes. And if they bring someone up and do something, and not just like answer in the chat, that's just good speaking. I mean, they bring someone up, something that's going to disrupt your flow, because you get someone else on the screen with you, at least
like a hot seat.
And then you get an extra 5 minutes. And then I also do the hot seats. Another thing that I do, which is where an audience member gets to raise their hand and say, hey, I've got a challenge. Could the 4, 5, 6 very competent and experienced people who are on this panel help me with it? Because I realized one day, and this came up by accident. I started toying with hot seats and masterminds and different things. And I was in a summit, and we had an interactive block. And I realized we had like 6 of the smartest people I knew were on this call right now and here to share and teach. And their job was to make themselves look good and make people like them. And I thought, guys, we've got these really smart people that I've recruited at this event. Anyone want to get coaching by all of them at once? And somebody raised their hand. And I was thinking, so my concern is okay, the person in the hot seat, obviously, if they don't get overwhelmed, they're going to get value. The coaches, maybe they'll get value because they get some exposure, but, I'm asking a bit of them. And then the audience is going to watch someone else's problem get solved. So at the end, I said, let me just get a feel of the room, put the word value in the chat if you got value out of it. And the chat lit up.
Mm.
And obviously the person who was there, person in the hot seat that said it, but all the coaches who supported them, half the audience, 2/3 of the audience, not just like value all lowercase, but like all capitals, fire emoji, exclamation mark, greatest ever, never seen this as someone before. And what I realized was a few things happen. The audience can engage better when it's an actual thing happening in front of them. When the speaker is speaking, okay, some speakers use narratives and stories that really draw people in, but usually it's more like, here is how this works. There is a 4-step process: step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. And so it's theoretical, but they can't always say, okay, oh, that's how that works in the world. But when somebody says, I've got this problem, this is the problem I'm having, and then they watch the speakers work through it, and sometimes saying, well, as I said in my talk, there's this 4-step process. So step 1 for you would be blah, step 2 would be blah, ties it in. Now it makes it real, and it's a great showcase for the speakers. Because anyone, as I joke with my speakers, I could memorize any of your speeches and give it, and I would sound just as smart as you do, because I'd be reading the same thing you read. But not anyone can respond to a live question and give good live answers. And then what I found out from the coaches or the speakers is, first off, they learn from each other. So they're all answering the same question, and they get to hear other people, because often, why would someone else with a similar expertise to them be in the room with them when they're coaching someone? So they get to hear other people and learn from them. And they often learn from answering the question themselves, because
I love that.
Sometimes it's a novel problem. They haven't actually solved this exact iteration. They've done this, they've done this, they've done this, but they haven't done this. And so working through this one is powerful for them. So everyone in the room gets value out of it. So I love doing, I love creating the hot seats in the summits.
All right. So everybody, I want to just recap this for you. And that is, Michael is saying, have everybody on gallery view, right? So you can see everyone. But then after you've had a speaker, let there be a time where somebody volunteers to be coached by all the people on a panel. So have a panel of, say, the 3 or 4, however many speakers. And what happens is the speakers learn from each other. The people who are there learn from whoever volunteered to be coached, and the person who volunteered to be coached learns as well. And it bridges that gap between theory and application. And isn't that what we want to do? We want to bridge that gap between theory and application. That's where I think some of these events that you were talking about earlier that have all the fanfare, all the gamification, all the incredible music and dancing and the cheering, right? The canned cheering when somebody says something. You know what I'm talking about. It's not real audience, but they're like,
cheering on Zoom.
Yeah, exactly. All of these events that have all this fanfare. Well, I have to say, once you've been to a few of them, they have this formula and it gets boring. It gets really boring. And the other thing is, it is a very contrived relationship between the speakers and the people present, right? There's not going to be a conversation after that. There's just not. Now, maybe somebody's going to enroll in their big program and come to a 5-day whatever. That's obviously what they want to have happen. But is there going to be a conversation after that? Are they going to get to speak to that speaker again? Are they going to have access to that person at a level? And I think that's part of what this is, Michael, is like, it's not the size per se of the event, but maybe the depth of it. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, and to what you're talking about, those kinds of events, those have a specific purpose. They're meant to do a specific thing. And as you mentioned, they get boring by the 4th one. Target audience isn't the 4th one. The target audience is people who have never been to one before, and they are whiz-bang dazzled by all the doodads and the sound and lights. Like, oh my God, I've never seen a Zoom call like this. This is amazing. And if this is the kind of event you put on, how great must your program be? Take my money.
Yeah.
So someone who's doing those events isn't going to listen to us and be like, oh my God, I need to change my events. But the audience who needs to hear this message is the person who says, I want to put on an event, but they seem really complicated. And so you're trying to do that. So you try to make a dashboard and it's sort of like duct taped together, and you go find a wave file of an audience cheer, and then you try to use that and you try to gamify. Don't do it. if you know what you're doing, if you got a professional who's like, I'm going to build a high converting event for you, and we're going to bring in people cold in the audience, and okay, that's a different thing. But if you're trying to put on an event because you're trying to build a community, you're trying to build an audience, you're trying to create connection, all that stuff isn't for that. It's the wrong tool. Like, you need a scuba mask, and that is a saw. You need the right tool for the job. And so, consider what it is. And I think that's the thing we see a lot in the online business world, the entrepreneurial world, is a lot of monkey see, monkey do, because information, there's so much of it, and a lot of it's either wrong or irrelevant. So you'll see something and say, oh, I want one of those. I want that. And you'll because you'll talk to them and they'll say, oh, yeah, I just did an $800,000 weekend. I want an $800,000 weekend. What they won't tell you is their $800,000 weekend cost them $1.1 million in overhead. That's something big.
Said.
That's something
said,
big
Michael.
in the industry in the last few years.
Yeah.
Is a lot of these big players who are known for their $1 million launches. They've got to do $1 million launch.
Yeah. Yeah.
If they don't do $1 million launch, their reputation's on the line. And now it's internal numbers, and they could just fudge the numbers, but someone will know. So they need to do $1 million in revenue. And some of them are pouring 1.5 million into their $1 million launches to make sure they don't lose the prestige. Now, keep in mind, they could not do that, make $400,000, still be quite profitable and successful, but then they wouldn't be $1 million launcher. So a lot of these events that you're seeing that look so spectacular and look so exciting and dramatic, and some of the biggest ones, they mail you out a packet ahead of time, and which is not a bad idea if you are profitable, by the way. But
I love those boxes ones, actually. I do. Yeah. I love those boxes,
but they're doing all this stuff, and it's like, oh my God, this is amazing. A lot of them are losing money, so be careful who you're copying, and. Like with my events do not make hundreds of thousands of dollars. They also don't cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. So they are low cost and low revenue, but big audience building. They get me on podcasts.
And big community building and big relationship marketing. Because here's the thing, there is no better way for you. And what I do is I help big-hearted women entrepreneurs, and I do work with some men, but women entrepreneurs in my Make It Happen Mastermind reach 6 figures and multiple 6 figures fast with fun. And what I always say is one of the fastest ways that you're going to reach 6 figures, there are just 3 marketing methods you want. And one of those is networking, i.e. relationship marketing. And that's what a summit will do. A summit, whether you are presenting in it or you are putting it on and being the person who vets the speakers, and hiring Michael, you all who are listening, whether you're doing that or you are just participating in somebody else's summit, if you play this right, if you go in with this attitude of building relationships, you will leave with joint venture partnerships. You will leave with setups for new complimentary sessions that can lead to new clients. You'll leave with maybe someone who you're going to co-author a book with. But the thing is to go in with the idea of relationship. And so I would ask you this. I think this is interesting, Michael, because obviously, like we pointed out, those big fanfare events that big name people are sinking a lot of money into are meant to sell expensive programs and pay for everyone who is in the event and pay for all the technical stuff, etc., which is great. But what would you say is a good call to action for people to give when they're in a summit? So let's say I'm coming to speak for you or you're coming to speak on my summit. What would be a smart call to action for a speaker to give at the end of their talk?
It depends on what your goals are and what you're trying to do and what your time looks like and whatnot. But assuming we were talking about someone who is not drowning in leads and not so busy they can only talk to a couple people, then you want to do the thing that will get the most people into your orbit. So sometimes people think, well, I want to make my offer. I want to offer my program because I want to get people ready to buy. Well, even if your ideal customers in the audience, they're not ready to buy. in 15 or 30 or 45 minutes, you probably have not gotten them so wowed that they're like, wow, only $5,000, take my money, let's go. You're going to need to nurture them further. So what you're better off, and also most events have rules of some kind. You can make an offer, you can't make an offer, you can make an offer, but it's only 30 seconds, you can make an offer, got to give a percentage, there's some kind of rule about it. So it makes much more sense to get them into your space than to try to sell them in someone else's space. And people are pretty open to signing up for a newsletter, signing up for a discovery call, signing up for a freebie to get into a newsletter. And if you ask them to do it, then they'll often do it. And here's the thing I'll point out is we often assume, oh, they didn't get on my list because they don't want to. Or they didn't get on your list because they forgot to, because you asked them to and then kept talking. So this is a trick for speakers that I learned from, I think I learned from Phil Palucha first, and then learned it from some others. And last time I used it on a physical stage, I don't get on physical stage as much, but last time I used it on a physical stage, I believe I got 17 out of 20 people in the room to sign up.
Nice.
And it's in.
Did you strip, Michael? What did you do?
I feel like that would have distracted them from signing up, actually. So I asked them to, and I think it was a free copy of my book, or it was some fairly simple lead magnet, and get on my email list so we can get in touch. And I asked them to do it like most people do. I got a free copy of my book, so go to this website and go get it. Except I made it longer. I didn't just say, go get my book. I said, there's something I want you to do right now. I want you to pull out your phone.
Exactly.
Please pull out your cell phone right now. I know you're not supposed to, but I'm giving you permission. Pull out your cell phone, go to the web browser, whichever one you like best, and type in, and I gave them the URL. And then it will ask you for your email address. And I asked you to right now, type in your email address into the website. And I repeat it in case you didn't hear the first time. And then hit submit. All right. Everyone, I see some phones. Good. You're doing it. Awesome. Thank you. I see you're done. Awesome. Thank you all. Okay.
You're not doing it. Shame on you.
Yeah.
See, I can get by with that.
I wouldn't point out anyone who's not doing it, because maybe they're not for whatever reason. But anyone who is doing it, I will point out what they're doing well. So like, thank you. And people look around, they're like, oh, everyone else has their phone out. Yeah, I guess
I'm a smart ass, though. I would say, oh, shame on you. I'd have fun with it.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I learned the trick for podcasts, actually. So the trick is when the host says, do you have a gift for anyone, for our audience? Then what you say is, yes, I do. So what I'd like the audience to do is pull your car over to the road where it's safe, because I know that's where you're listening to this podcast. Pull over safely. Now I want you to pull out your phone and go to your browser and go to summits.fun and see all of my upcoming events and register for one of them. So by going through those steps, and especially because most people listen to podcasts in cars, if I say I want you to pull over the car safely, when you're driving and you hear that, you're going to laugh out loud. Because it's one of those, how'd you know I was driving? Because everyone listens to podcasts in the car. And then anyone who's not is like, yeah, I usually do. Yeah, he's got me. But
and you
it
can
also
up the ante even more, Michael. There's another way you can up the ante there, is you can have people hit that submit, and you can say, and by the way, I'm going to have my team go in and choose a winner of X audio or X whatever valued at such and such from everyone who does this in the next 10 minutes or the next 5 minutes. And then you do follow up, but that just ups the ante, because there's going to be a prize giveaway,
But yeah, either way, it's walking people through, because otherwise they'll be like, yeah, I'll do it later. Yeah.
You got to tell them what to do.
And one of the things I've realized, and I went to the Mystic Seaport a few weeks ago, and I had this realization. People see themselves as spectators in their own lives all the time. So when you're listening to a podcast, or we're at a summit, or we're listening to a speaker, we feel like we are outside of the world watching this, and not that we're participating in it. And I realized this because we were on the demonstration they're doing is this old wooden whaling boat, and they're showing how they pulled up the rowboat. I don't know what it's called, the boat that goes out and gets the wheel. And part of what needed to be done, and we're used to everything being automatic, electronic. There's a motor, you pull a switch, whatever. Part of what you had to do was everyone on board had to go to port side to tip the boat to port, so you could pull the boat up and it would not scrape the side. Then everyone had to go to the starboard side, so the boat would swing in and land on the cradle. And so as they're doing this, they'd say, okay, everyone needs to get over to port, tilt it. And some people would go, and some people were just like taking pictures and like they're tourists. They're like, no, seriously, you with the camera have to come over here. Your mass is on the wrong side of the boat. You affect what you're part of, because people are so used to not influencing anything they're part of. Even if you're on social media, you hit like, what's that do? You put a comment, nobody replies. So when you're listening to a podcast and they say, I want you, and they say, you can download my book or whatever, they're like, yeah, it's not for me. I'm not in this podcast. I'm just listening. That's for the audience. I'm not in the audience. I'm just driving. So if you actually say, I want you to stop your car and look at your phone, then they're like, oh, stop my car. What? Because I've totally had podcasts I'd be listening to, and they'd say, do this. I'm like, I should do that, but I'm driving. So I guess I can't.
All right, Michael, I want to say something. Let's show everybody how to do this. I want y'all to pull over your car or stop your walk while you're watching this outside. And I want you to make a comment. Make a comment. What's an aha for you? And what Michael has already said. Put a comment. Even if you're not watching this.
Driving while watching this, though.
Yeah. Put a comment. Yeah, video. Right. Pull over. And when we do that, when we engage people feel that they matter and become part of a conversation, which takes us back to that point about, instead of us just having this be a one-way transmission of information that goes out from you to somebody else, this really is it's a conversation with multiple people. And it's way more interesting and rich that way, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah. And when I really discovered the power of this, first time I discovered the power when I went to non-interactive events. And seriously, guys, put something in the comments. I'm still looking. I don't see it. Comment. Anyway, I would go to non-interactive events and I'd say, this is not what I hoped for. I wanted an event. This is just someone talking to me. This is a YouTube video, but worse.
And they're pretending it's a live webinar. I hate that.
Oh yeah. It's
God.
Funny. Most things I go to are introduced to me by people I know. So I don't think I've ever been to a live webinar.
I have, and it's so obvious, it's so obvious once you've been to one that's truly live and you see that and they're trying to make it seem like it's live still. No, don't do that. And don't run the comments. However they do that, don't run the comments from the last webinar.
Here's a crazy idea. Don't lie. Yeah. One of my actions is if they'll lie about something, they'll lie about anything.
Yes, I believe that.
So if you'll lie about your webinar being live, if you'll lie about there being comments, what else do you lie about? Do you lie about what's in your program? Do you lie about your results? Do you lie about, are you going to lie about what's there and then lie to the bank when I try to get a chargeback? What else are you going to lie about? When you don't lie, your life is easier. You don't get chargebacks. You don't lie to people. Crazy idea.
Yeah.
There are some coaches who never get chargebacks.
You know what? That's funny you say this because I had to actually get a debt recovery program after 23 years in business. I just had 2 people that kind of came in and didn't complete what they needed to complete with the contract. And he said, you mean you haven't had any other problems like that? And I said, I could count them on one hand. I could count them on one hand, truthfully, because if you run your business with integrity based on trust, the amount of people who are going to violate that is very small. And, those are the ass wipes, by the way. They are the ass wipes. And you're going to encounter a few of those. But he really was incredulous. He said, are you serious? How long have you been in business? 23 years. Wow. How do you do that? And I said, well, I have good people. I'm a good person. I have good agreements that spell out everything. And then when I do have something like that happen, I go back and I revisit the agreement and I address it. I assume responsibility for it myself, that it's my failing that somehow I didn't spell it out enough. And then I take care of that. so it doesn't happen again. But I love what you're saying. I love all of this. So many good points that I've put up in the comments that you're saying, Michael. And there's something funny, you all. I have to tell you that Michael and I, before we got on here, he was telling me that somebody was offended because we used the word suck, right? The word suck. How to not suck in your virtual event. And I just said, that is so crazy to me that somebody would be offended by that. What the heck?
So there's two things that he's offended by. One is the word suck, and I think that might be more cultural because there's some people for whom suck is a more offensive word than for us. It's
might have been
no
cultural. Okay.
So I think it was partly cultural, so I accept that. But it was also the fact that it was don't. He's like, why don't you instead say fun virtual events that make connections or fun virtual events that do positive things?
Because everybody does that.
Yeah, everybody does that, and it blends in and it's dull and nobody believes it because everybody does it. And most of them are lying. And the other thing is, if I say that I need one promise that make money, that make connections, that grow your business. That's one promise. I don't know what promise my event's going to fulfill for you. It could make money.
Because we don't know what your promise is.
It could be fun. It could be make connections. It could be find JV partners. It could be whatever. But the other thing I do is I'm entering the conversation that's already happening in your mind. Mm-hmm. We go into a conversation. We're in a networking group or whatever, and you say, Michael, what do you do? And I say, I run virtual events. And they're like, virtual events? Yeah, summits. And in your head, you're thinking, ugh, summits. Last summit I went to, I dozed off and I woke up with a keyboard imprint on my face. And it was terrible. But you're not going to say that out loud because I run summits. And you don't want to be like, oh, I hate summits. Yeah. You're going to say, oh, that's nice.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Oh, look at my wrist. I think I left the squirrel on the stove. I've got to go. Versus I say, what do you do? Oh, I run fun virtual events that don't suck. Or actually, I use my introduction, which is I say, well, you know how most virtual events are dull and boring? What I do is I run fun virtual events that don't suck. And they're like,
and then they laugh.
I was going to say virtual events suck. Because everyone thinks they suck because most of them do.
Even if people don't use the language. Yes. Yep. And it's also funny. So, I like to expose, in the bold, badass business owners, I like to expose the underbelly of the dark underbelly of what people are telling you. That's not true, really. And look at those things that you shouldn't be doing, because that's just as instructive as having some kind of pedestrian way about here's what you do for your virtual event. You think, who is your audience? Then you think this, all these platitudes that are out there. But, we really get down and dirty in terms of what not to do in this show. What's going to make you look like an ass? What's going to make you look bad? What's not going to get you the result you want? And in this case, if you do what Michael is saying, if you really engage people, if you make them important, if you let them have a hot seat, if you do panels of your speakers, if you have a speaker meet and greet, then your speakers and your audience are going to sing your praises. And you're going to hear things like, oh, I really didn't want to leave, but I had to go pick up my daughter. Or, oh, I intended to go blah, 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 but I didn't because it was so interesting.
All the time.
And Michael, guess what? I heard some of those comments from my people who came. I heard some of those comments.
If I had a bigger team, I would give the recordings to my team and have them do a supercut of people at the end of every event, just saying, I can't sit on a Zoom call for 6 hours, and yet here I am. How did I do that? Because at the end of almost every summit, someone says some variation of that. And the interesting thing is if you were to look at my process, and you think of all the things you need. Well, you need to know your ideal audience is, what problem they're solving, blah, 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 blah. I do that. But our process for that is so the team member who actually sets up the landing page and the application and whatnot, I give her basically a paragraph, and I'm talking 2 or 3 sentences, about this is who the audience is, this is what problem they have, and this is what kind of speakers we're looking for. And I give her enough, because she needs that to be able to write the swipe copy so that, people know it's for them. But we don't do a deep process. We don't really get really deep into it. And what we find are good speakers who have an engaged audience who can get them to show up. And that makes it work. So now, again, there's a different type of summit, which is based on Facebook ads and social media ads and paid ads that drive to an upsell, that drive to a VIP pass, to a bump in a funnel, and the whole thing.
Yeah.
That's a whole different model. And if you want that and you don't know how to do it, then you might want to hire someone to do it. But
you could also do that, Michael, in a simpler way. You could definitely do that with a little upsell of the recordings.
Yeah. But with that kind of thing, it's tougher because that tends to be a matter of bringing in a lot of people, so a smaller number of people will buy your thing. And with the understanding, generally, your thing isn't that valuable. Mm-hmm. That's why I have trouble, selling of the recordings or something like that, because I know most people don't go back and watch the recordings. So
yes. And yet, I have to say, there was something recently. There were two things recently that I just was looking through a bank statement. And I was like, oh, yeah, I forgot about that. I got that recording. And so I have to put them into a little folder. And there will be a moment where I'll get it out and maybe listen to some part of it. But people, I think we want to allow people the opportunity to also express some kind of gratitude. I really mean that, Michael, that, hey, you're not able to come. Well, how about getting the replay? You could also share it with somebody. That's fine. But go ahead and just let them. It's kind of like a tithe. Let them tithe back to the speakers.
Yeah. People buy the replay for the same reason you buy the T-shirt at a concert.
Exactly.
You want to capture the experience. I talked about that in an email about why I put a call to action at the bottom of every email. And it's not necessarily because I want you to do the thing. Because basically, I'll write an email and be like, oh, I need a call to action here. What should it be? I've got a webinar coming up or whatever. The reason I put it there is that we're used to doing a thing after reading something we like. So like, share, comment. Those are like, oh, I really like this. Like, but you can't click like on an email. So you have this unsatisfied feeling of like, but I want something. I don't want to reply. Like, replying seems like a lot of work, but I want to do something. So I give you some path. Like, so if you like this, do this. Oh, thank you, Michael. Now I know where to go next. I did like this. Now I know what to do.
And so put it in the PS, y'all. Put it in the PS. There's your tip from Dr. Barnsley, is put it in the PS, because people read the PS even when they don't read the rest of your email.
That is true. Yep.
So PS put it in the PS. People just gloss over your email, but if you have an exciting PS, they'll do the PS. I definitely agree with you there. And that is true about the difference between email and, say, or even a social media post. Ask people to comment below, ask people to share it, have a clear CTA, a clear call to action on everything you do, including when you're in a summit. Well, so as we wrap this, Michael, gosh, there's so many questions I still have for you, but what would you say to somebody who's like, well, a summit, it seems like a whole lot of work. It seems like a whole lot of work.
Do all the work for them.
Exactly. Right. What would they want to do? Like, for example, I know someone who recently ran a summit, and she let people have complimentary sessions with these speakers. And it ended up, I was at that summit and I took some of the complimentary sessions, and I ended up putting a number of the people on my show. I also ended up inviting somebody to be in a book that I'm in, a compilation book, and introducing her. So there's all this good stuff that happened from it. So what would you want to say to that person? What are the thoughts they need to have? First of all, they need to think, what's the purpose of this summit? Do I want to get people in my Facebook community, or what else? What would be some of the purposes that you see, the goals that you see?
So with anything you're doing, begin with the end in mind. Why are you doing it? Are you running a summit because someone told you should run a summit? That's a bad reason. Are you, same thing with podcast, email list, social media, Facebook, TikTok, anything. Why are you doing it? What do you expect to get out of it? And so have that clear. And then also realize, as you're putting together, you're not organizing South by Southwest. You're not putting people on the stage that's going to be their breakthrough stage. It's not TEDx. So how do you deliver value when you can't deliver a massive engaged audience, which you probably can't because almost no one can. So how can you deliver the value? And if you can't make a big room, make a great small room. More money's made in small rooms than big rooms. So let's run through the quick outline of what you need to do to run a summit. First thing I'd recommend is there's a tool called EventRaptor, eventraptor.com. Without it, my summits would be impossible to run because it takes care. I don't build any websites. It does all the work. So get EventRaptor. Then you want to write a nice description. The description.
Stephen, I've forgotten her name right now. Stephen
Jenny Erickson.
Stephen Jenny Erickson. You all, eventraptor.com is fabulous. They also, just as a tip for everybody, they have events for speakers, for people looking for guest spots, and for people looking for guests. They have those events too that you can come to, that you can attend free. So definitely check it out and come visit.
Yep. Yeah. And so actually when you hit create event in EventRaptor or create summit, it'll take you through a series of pages. You generally want to do the work ahead of time, but it will effectively tell you what you need to do. So it's going to say, give us a description to give to the speakers for the application. So you'll give them a description. They need to know who the target audience is and who the speaker is supposed to be, and then all the other details you need. And if you're not sure what to put, go look at other events that have open applications and copy. So you will then use that, and that will get your speakers. So how do you find speakers? You say, I have a summit, I'm looking for speakers. And then speakers say, ooh. You will then not charge the speakers, because here's what happens when you charge speakers. It changes the calculus. The best speakers will say, no, thank you. I only pay for stages that are really big that I guarantee I can monetize, or I only speak when I'm paid to speak. And the more mediocre speakers will say, oh, if I pay $300, I can get on the stage and get value. Well, I need to make sure my talk is optimized to get value, which means optimized to sell, not optimized to deliver value. So charging speakers will not make them more engaged. It will either make them run away or it'll make them behave in a perverse way. So I don't charge speakers. I don't recommend anyone does. I don't recommend you pay to speak unless you know the audience is worth it. Also, it's logistically complicated to get their money. So you will invite speakers. You'll say, I'm running at a summit. It is for this topic. If you speak on this topic, come to my summit. And I audition people on my stage. Now, part of it is because I run a number of summits. I don't run one summit to rule them all. I'll be running 24 summits this year when the year is over. So if I have someone on stage and they're not that great, I just don't invite them back. So I don't need to spend hours and hours and hours watching every video and reviewing everyone. I read what they wrote. If it seems in alignment, maybe I'll check something and I'll see if they promote it. So set expectations for how they should promote it. Write good swipe copy. Good swipe copy is simply copy that makes it clear why they should come. Don't overthink it. You're running a great event. Tell me why. What's great about it? Why are you excited about it? And if you're not excited, why are you running it? So why are you excited about it? And put that in there and give them something to share. And half your speakers aren't going to use it anyway because they're going to rewrite it. So
and it doesn't need to be long. People don't want to read your long ass emails. Make it short and sweet. Short
and good and clear. You'll use Canva to create the graphics. And there's templates you can use on Canva. You can hire someone on Fiverr. You probably don't need to. You can probably just use a template. Again, nobody decides what summit they're going to do based on how it looks. And in fact, if I see a summit that looks super like they spent a lot of money in the graphics, I assume I don't want to go. Because if they spent a lot of money in the graphics, they probably spent a lot of money on the rest of it, which means they're trying to sell me something expensive. Whereas if the cover looks like it was made on Canva, it's probably going to be a place we're going to be hanging out chatting. You should make your event interactive, and you should make clear in your copy that your event is interactive. All of my events say a virtual interactive event. Actually, an awesome virtual interactive event. But the word interactive is on the graphics on all of them because I make clear this is an interactive event. You're going to run interactive. After all the speakers.
I got 7 things up there already. Man, I'm typing like my high school typing teacher would be happy right now, Michael.
I see the smoke coming off your fingers there. So speaker's going to apply. You're going to send them an acceptance email that makes them confirm. Yes, I'm going to promote. Yes, I can make it. Make them confirm. Set up a schedule. Ask them what time they want to speak. Set up a schedule. Send the schedule out. Say, what do you say yes or no? Does this time work for you? If yes, mark it as approved. If no, fix it. Now, make them promote. I send out an email to my speakers. So if I'm on schedule, which I usually am, 30 days out, I send, 45 days out, ideally, I send out the acceptance email saying you're in and start promoting now. Here's your swipe copy. 30 days out, I say, no, really, start promoting now. We're getting into it. A few times the next 2 weeks, I'll send out reminders. And then at 14 days, it's on. One email every day with a leaderboard. Here's how everyone is promoting.
Mm-hmm.
It's color-coded. At 7 days, anyone who's at 0, I add their name to the leaderboard in red. I don't shame them until 7 days out. I encourage people to promote as early as possible, but some people are like, nope, I refuse to promote until 6 days out. Fine, as long as you get people to come in, whatever. But if we're 7 days out, then your name's appearing in red with a 0 next to it for every other speaker to see. Every email has the link to the swipe copy document that also includes their affiliate links and also includes the schedule. In other words, every email has what they need to promote. So if they ignored the last 6 emails, don't assume they got any one of your emails. So that makes life so much easier if you just make every email autonomous and aren't like, oh, no, it was in the other email. Didn't you get the other email? You don't want to be like, oh, yeah, let me send that out to you. You want to have everything in one place, make it simple.
So
Then
you
the
could
events
send
are on
out,
Zoom.
just as
Yep.
many as they want.
The event's going to be on
Michael,
Zoom.
this is a lot of the how, which is great. And people,
Yes.
that's, I think, very interesting to people because you can see this is not an easy one-step thing. There
Yep.
is quite a lot you've got to think of, which is why it's nice to have somebody like Michael doing this stuff for you,
It's true.
because it's a lot. There's a lot involved. But let's just go back for a second to the major things that you will accomplish through having a summit. So, for
Oh, the why, not the
example,
how. Yeah.
you can build your list
Yep.
because you're going to give them a call to action and you're going to inspire them to get your complimentary session or your special report or your ebook or your checklist or your workbook or your e-course, whatever.
So if you're hosting the summit is the lead magnet. You build
Yes.
your list with the summit. If you're a speaker, the lead magnet is how you draw from that. But as the host,
Right.
for all this work that you just did, plus the 6 steps I didn't get to, your pay for all this work is you get the list.
And you get it multiplied by however many speakers you have who are sharing this with their list.
You've probably heard people say, I'll get you 10,000 opt-ins with a summit. And maybe they got some way to do it. I don't know. If you're running your own summit, if you get 300, you did well. But you did it yourself. And once you learned how to do it once, it's relatively easy to run another one. You're going to find, so I find that speakers who promote get between 0 and the most I've ever gotten is 83 registrations from one speaker. But the average is 10 to 20. The minimum I said is 10. Some hosts set a minimum of 30. Some have a deposit that you get back over 30, which again is basically paying to speak, and I don't like it, but you can do that. The more selective
you want to make sure they're real registrants, because see, this is the other thing. Like in that summit I was in, I was actually calling people and texting people I know personally and putting it out on Facebook, but I was letting people know who I knew needed it. And that's very different from me just throwing it out to my email list of over 3,000 and letting it sort of hit where it will. And a lot of times people will just say, oh, just register, don't come, just register. Don't do that. You want good registrants. You want somebody to bring in real people and not just have Aunt Matilda registering.
Yes, definitely. Yep. Yeah, yes, you
and
definitely
I've
don't
seen
want
that.
Yeah, you definitely don't want fake registrations. So now one thing I don't keep track of is show rate of individual speakers, because what I've found, or what others have found who track numbers far more deeply than I do, and my less detailed numbers bear it out, is that people who register early show at a lower rate and buy at a higher rate. Now, what everyone knows is people who register later show at a higher rate. So if your event's on Saturday, people who register on Friday are more likely to show than people who register 2 weeks in advance. But of the total registrations, not of the people who show up, of the total registrations, you get more sales, more engagements, more doing the thing from people who register 3 weeks and 4 weeks in advance than 1 day in advance.
And that
And
makes
the
sense
reason,
because they're in there for the long term, right? They're
yes,
thinking this is really something I need. And so
yep,
they're in there for the long term. They're really thinking about the future. They're not
yep.
just kind of planning
Well,
day by day,
well,
you
and
know?
also the people who are day by day, they're often looking for the miracle of the week. So
Right.
they
They're
go to
looking for the
every event,
shiny object.
they go to every masterclass, every webinar, hoping this will be the one where they learn the secret they're missing to their business. When the secret is stop going to every summit and every masterclass and actually sit down and work on your business.
Create your
Where the person
content.
who's seriously working, they're not free tomorrow. If I tell you
Yeah.
I've got a summit coming on tomorrow, you're like, I can't make it. I'm working.
I
Busy.
can make.
Well,
I
fair
got
enough.
shit.
Tomorrow, Saturday.
I got shit to do. So
Yep.
let me pause you for a second. So I really want everyone to get this because I think we're going to have a lot of people. We got some people coming in and out, but we're going to have a lot of people who are thinking about, a summit, but not really sure how it can enhance their business. So it can definitely build your list, you
Yep.
all.
Yeah. So there's four
Don't
things.
think about all that how stuff because that'll overwhelm you for now. But it is in the chat, right? It's there.
Yep.
Don't think about all that. Think about how you can build your list. Think about how you can
Yep.
have access to other people's lists, which is
Yeah,
great,
so
and
there's
establish partnerships.
There's 4 solutions that I tell people, and if you're worried about the house stuff, you can lower that to 1 step and just hire me. And
Just hire
then the
Michael.
process is make clear to me what your summit's about, and then show up. And then
why do a summit here?
Yep. But so the 4 things that you get from running a summit: first is list build, as we mentioned. The second is that you are going to get to be in a room with 20, at least for the events I run, 20 to 45 engaged attendees, and you will have their attention for 6 hours. You can probably do something with that if you have some kind of offer, I would think.
Love
You
it.
also get authority. You're a summit host. That's up there with podcast host, author. It gives you that expert credibility, gives you that credential, and you gain the patina of the expertise of everyone else on your stage. So they feel like you know that. Even if you don't know that stuff, just being near them, they're like, oh, you're like an expert. And the 4th thing yet, which can be the most valuable, is you get potential joint venture relationships with all the speakers, as many speakers as you have. And the conversation you have when you're talking about doing a joint venture, whatever it is not how do we do a joint venture? It is what will our next joint venture be? Because you just did one. A summit's a joint venture. And you know their expertise, you know how they speak, and you know how they promote. So you can look at your own leaderboard and you can say, I want to talk to the people who are in green and orange, which are the higher numbered ones. I don't need to talk to the people who are red and blue. Those are the lower numbered ones. I'm going to talk to people in green and orange because I know they know how to promote, and then say, how can we work together? And you just put them on a stage. So all they promoted you, they got value out of that. So normally in the reciprocal model, if I want you to promote me to your audience, I need to promote you to my audience. With a summit, they promote you to their audience and then thank you for it and want to reciprocate because they're promoting themselves to their audience. They're telling their audience, I have the credibility of being on this stage. This host thinks I'm pretty cool, so you should come see me and see my talk and get to know me better. You're giving them a stage.
It activates the law of reciprocity.
Yep.
It activates the law of reciprocity when we do something for someone else, and we let them borrow our authority or our expertise. Then, as long as they're not a pitta, which is a pain in the ass, as long as they're not that, they're going to have a desire to reciprocate. And we're going, or we're going to be top of mind for other connections that they might throw our way. So I love this, Michael. Can you believe we've been talking for an hour?
Look, the crazy thing with that reciprocity is they already helped you, and now they want to repay you for having the chance to help you.
That's the best thing, right? It's just
Yep.
a win-win all the way around, I think, with the
Yeah.
summit. And again, it is like about the team, it's about the event, it's about the experience, it's about everyone present. So, Michael, you have given us so much. You and I could definitely keep talking about this, but I think we don't want to overload y'all, right? We've got all the how in there, but again, you can condense all that, those 7 steps and the other 6 that Michael alluded to, condense it by giving him a call. And you do, Michael, what is your website? It's summits.fun, right?
Because all summits should be .fun.
All right. And do
Yep.
you have like a complimentary consultation that they
Yes.
can sign up for?
Yep.
All right, you all,
if
there's your giveaway.
So if they open a second tab in their browser right now and go to summits.fun, don't do it in the browser you're in because you're watching us in your browser. Go to the second tab, summits.fun.
Don't cut us off.
You will see the button to register for any summits that are accepting registrations currently, of which there's 2 in September and 2 in October. And you will also see a big, I believe it is green, a big green button that says book a call. And that will let us get on a call, and I will share with you all the details about what it is for me to run a summit for you and answer any questions. And even if you're thinking, I think I can do it myself, I'm happy to get on a call with you, answer some questions, point you in the right direction. Because if you're going to run it, I'd rather you run a good one, because the less bad summits there are, the easier it is for me to get people to come to mine. People have bad experiences, then I got to overcome that. So I want you to run good summits. So if you just want to get advice, but also on that call, as I'm giving you that advice, you may discover that the shortest path to a completed summit is through me and not through doing it yourself, because I've run 29 summits now, and I'm still learning things. And in the first few, I was learning big things, really big things. One of them, I made an error and people couldn't get into the event for the first 30 minutes. So if you're running your first summit, you make the most mistakes the first time. Then you make the second most mistakes the second time. So it's going to take you 3-4 times to work out all the bugs, and hopefully your mistakes aren't catastrophic. But if I run it for you, you don't make any mistakes. And if there are any mistakes, it's not your problem. When there's a mistake,
and you know what, Michael?
You'll hear about it later.
I have seen so many online events where there were problems, and we're talking about, with professionals running it, but there were problems. So you really want to make sure that you've got somebody who understands the ins and outs of what you're trying to accomplish, because, otherwise you could really lose a lot of your work. You want this summit to have as much impact as possible. So you all, I have put this over here. Book a call with Michael at summits.fun. And also I've put, because I forget to say this, go get my free ebook, How to Overcome Overwhelm in 7 Easy Steps. I know some of you are like, I'm overwhelmed with all that we have to think about now.
Is one of the 7 easy steps delegate?
Yes, it's real. Yes. And have a team. There are a lot of really great, and it's fun, and it gives you a lot of strategies you can use. So go grab that, you all. And I'm going to ask everybody, because I forgot to do this at the beginning. I forget this sometimes, but I want to ask you to kindly go to my YouTube channel. Now, why do you want to go there? You want to go to Dr. Barnsley Brown because you want to subscribe and not miss another episode of Bold Badass Business Owners, where we bring you the amazing speakers who give so much value, like Michael has today. And we've just done like a seminar here. It's like a seminar, Michael. Y'all got a seminar. And those of you who've been coming in and out, make sure you go back and listen to the whole thing. It'll be up on my Facebook page. It'll be on the YouTube channel, Dr. Barnsley Brown. Please share this, because we know that if you're here, you're already a bold badass in business. And we want you to have the most abundance that you can possibly have. Right, Michael?
Absolutely.
All right, you all. So any last thought you want to give us, Michael? One last little quick nutshell, Jim. What's what I'm looking for? Jim, G-E-M, that you'd like to give everybody watching?
Whatever you do, your focus should be on providing value to people you meet, whether it's networking, running an event, teaching a class, working with a client. You should always be thinking, how am I making the life of this person better? And if you just start from that point, the right answers will follow.
I love that. How am I making the life of this person better? I'm putting that right over here. And if we keep this in mind, because truly I believe, certainly all the people I work with, Michael, and I think the people you work with too, we all have that deep desire to make other people's lives better and to actually have our world be better because we were here, right? To have a world that's better because we showed up and we shared our expertise and we shared our knowledge and we shared our focus and our love, all of those things. So always ask you all, how am I making the life of this person better? And thank you so much, Michael. You have definitely made our life better today at Bold Badass Business Owners. And we want to thank you, everybody. Go to YouTube, subscribe, and I'll see you next week where we have more badassery to come.